Hello and thank you for joining us. A Northwestern Ontario First Nation has signed a new friendship agreement with the City of Thunder Bay and the Fort William First Nation. The signing comes on the heels of criticism earlier this week from both Fort William and Nain officials over a City Council decision rejecting a call for the resignation of Senator Lynn Beyak. It was a decision the First Nations leaders called insulting and contrary to a city pledge to fight racism. But that anger was pushed aside Friday as the new deal was signed with representatives from North Caribou Lake. Corey Nordstrom has the details.
The signing represents a new bond between the remote First Nation of North Caribou Lake, the Fort William First Nation, and the City of Thunder Bay and its police service. For its part, the city says it's looking to improve community development, public safety, anti-racism, education, and cultural awareness. The overall aim is to improve the situation for students from the north coming to Thunder Bay. North Caribou Lake Chief Dinah Kinate says she knows what these young people go through when they move away from home.
I remember when I was 13 years old, I'm on a flight going somewhere, not knowing what to expect over there. That's a scary experience, and as a child, you have to right away become an adult. You have to learn to defend yourself, to speak for yourself, all these things.
City Councillor Brian McKinnon says with NAN representing almost 50 Northern Reserves, and this being the first friendship agreement, it will serve as a great opportunity for everyone involved and something to learn from for the future.
And it's difficult to, address all of the needs of all of those. Now we start with one, and I think it's going to be a template, and it's going to be, a trend-setting thing that is going to be beneficial to both groups.
Although the decision by Thunder Bay Council to not seek resignation of Lynn Beyak wasn't a factor in the decision to move ahead with this friendship agreement, Fort William First Nation Chief Peter Collins says they were disappointed with Council's vote. Still, he believes it won't affect the band's relationship with the City of Thunder Bay.
Colonialism is still alive and well, if you can hear from in the words of Senator Beyak's comments, right? They still want to keep their thumb on us and keep us control of us, and that's, that's the hurting side of what's going on. And when we continue to try to achieve positive goals and positive outcomes, it's a little bump in the road, but I think they can rectify that problem.
Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
The National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations joined a group of chiefs from the Robinson-Huron Treaty Area at the Thunder Bay Courthouse last week. They claimed the Government of Canada has failed to adhere to the annuity increases in a treaty signed in 1850. The treaty area is located in northeastern Ontario and stretches from Batchewana near Sault Ste. Marie down along the east side of Lake Huron. The chiefs gathered at the first day of the hearing, which will continue here and at 3 courthouses in the northeast. According to National Chief Perry Bellegarde, the last annuity increase of $4 was in 1874. And while it's better to negotiate rather than litigate, he says this is the first step to making sure terms of the treaty are honored.
In this treaty, they were promised an initial amount of $2 per individual, and then when the lands generated more wealth, that those annuities would be increased. And so the last increase that they got here was in 1874, up to $4. And it's sat silent ever since then. And so the chiefs from this treaty territory have been working together to push the Crown to live by and abide by that treaty arrangement.
Hearings are expected to last until the end of March. Dryden OPP say a 40-year-old man was the victim of a single vehicle collision on Highway 502. The man was driving a highway line painting truck around 11:30 Thursday morning when it went out of control and left the roadway, rolling over near Rattlesnake Creek. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Highway 502 runs between Dryden and Fort Francis. The accident forced the complete closure of the highway for 2.5 hours. The OPP are continuing to investigate. Canada's Transportation Safety Board has wrapped up its investigation into a plane crash just north of Pickle Lake 2 years ago. On December 11, 2015, a Wasaya Airways Cessna aircraft took off from Pickle Lake en route to Angling Lake with a pilot and cargo on board. Less than 10 minutes into the flight, the aircraft crashed into the bush about 10 nautical miles north of Pickle Lake. The pilot was killed and plane was destroyed. The TSB says it found ice accumulation and a company practice of flying in icy conditions led to the crash. It adds that high takeoff weight was also a factor. Since the incident, Wasaya has increased minimum weather requirements to fly and made other changes to operating procedures. With municipal elections just over a year away, there's a possibility that a familiar face in Kenora won't be seeking re-election next fall. Mayor Dave Canfield has been mulling over the idea of retiring from municipal politics. First elected as a councillor in 1991, then mayor in 1994 for the town of Jaffrey Mellick, he served until 1999 when the community amalgamated with Kenora. He was then mayor of Kenora until 2006 when he was defeated by Len Compton, only to be re-elected in 2010 and again in 2014. He's also been NOMA president several times and says it's hard to walk away knowing how much he's invested over the years.
You hate to throw it away and walk away from it, and a lot of good things happening. And, you know, a lot of investment into NOMA over the years, and we've got a lot of fantastic things happening. NOMA is very well recognized as probably one of the top municipal organizations in the province of Ontario, and very well respected by government and all three parties, actually. So it's hard to walk away from that, but we'll see what next year brings.
The Centre for Research in Occupational Safety and Health is going mobile. A new research lab on wheels arrived in Thunder Bay earlier this week as part of its northern tour. The initiative aims to better include workers from the north into their research process. Luisa Alvarez reports.
This mobile lab was funded by the Ministry of Labour as an investment to try and connect northern communities. During the 12-stop tour, the Centre for Research in Occupational Safety and Health, or CROSH, will ask visitors to share key health and safety issues that workers and workplaces face in their community and throughout the region.
We go in and we try and understand the problem in their scenario. When we think we have an idea of what the problem is, we take it back to the lab and try and come up with a viable solution. If we think we've got a good solution, we go back and test it in the workplace.
The lab goes directly to the workplace to make it accessible and is fully functional.
Project exactly where an operator is focusing.
All the research and tests are done inside. One example of research that's been conducted in the past is looking into what factors contribute to workers' fatigue, from their nutrition, their fitness levels, and their sleeping patterns.
We tried to figure out what was causing their fatigue. We came back and looking at the data, we came up with an intervention that would target food, fitness, and psychosocial stress factors.
Catherine Sinden is a kinesiology professor at Lakehead University and a researcher with the center. She is currently working with Thunder Bay Fire Rescue, taking some of the research that's already been done in southern Ontario and bringing it here to Thunder Bay in order to include them in the analysis to make it relevant in the north as well.
So we have a research program called Firewall, and we're building evidence for firefighters that can help allow them to do their work safer and allow them to go home at the end of the day to their families.
The two-week tour kicked off in Sudbury, then they were here at the Oliver Road Community Centre, but they're back on the road on the Northern Highway to hit Sioux Lookout, Kenora, Dryden, Kirkland Lake, Kapuskasing, Timmins, and they'll end off October 5th in North Bay. Louise Alvarez, TVT News.
Ontario's Special Investigations Unit has decided not to lay charges against a Sioux Lookout OPP officer following an incident in April of 2016. A 22-year-old woman claims she suffered a fractured shoulder after she was taken to the ground by the officer. Police were called to a local motel regarding several intoxicated people causing a disturbance. While being booked at the OPP detachment, the woman complained of an injured shoulder and blamed the arresting officer. The SIU has announced it will not press charges, citing an absence of clear evidence in the case. Well, coming up after the break, officials hoping to renovate the Wilderness Discovery Camp are looking for a little help from local tradespeople. The ownership group responsible for operating the Wilderness Discovery Center on Lake Chebanduan is calling on skilled tradespeople to help with some major renovations. The camp has been closed for the past 2 years, and it's now in the possession of local Rotary clubs and the Hill City Kinsmen. Now they're asking electricians, plumbers, carpenters, and cleaners to volunteer some time over the next 6 weekends. The Camp for the Disabled, which is now known as the Wilderness Discovery Handy Capable Center, needs extensive work before it can reopen next year. Center President Bob Hookham says while original estimates place the cost of the work at around $500,000, the most recent projection sits at just under $1 million.
It's in pretty rough shape, actually, and it's not through anyone's fault. It's just it's older, and it's been shut down for just over 2 years. So we're going to start from bare bones in the washrooms. We're going to go in this weekend and take all the tile, all the showers, and everything out. Last week we took all the fixtures out. So we're going to strip everything down to the studs to make sure there's no mold or anything in there, and then start replacing everything and opening things up to make it more accessible.
To date, the group has secured only about $150,000 for the project, so donations, along with renovation help, are always welcome. Hookham says they have about 10 tradespeople on board so far. Anyone who wants to lend a hand is asked to contact the Fort William Rotary Club. The group is hoping to have the center ready to open in June or July of next year. North Star Air has signed a service agreement with another reserve in the Northwest. The Martin Falls First Nation has entered into a contract which will see North Star be the sole airline providing services to that community. Martin Falls joins 10 other First Nations on the North Star flight schedule. Corey Nordstrom tells us more.
Members of the Martin Falls Council arrived in Thunder Bay aboard a North Star plane. The purpose of the trip is to sign a partnership with the airline company and join 10 other remote communities that currently use North Star Air. Martin Falls Chief Bruce Achinipanescum and members of their council were in attendance to sign the agreement, which will see the two parties formulate long-term plans to provide the reserve with air services for years to come. North Star CEO Frank Kellner says their 11 host communities are what's important, and Martin Falls did their homework before signing on the dotted line.
The other communities, I mean, let's not forget about them. We can't forget about them. They've been so supportive to us. And that's part of the due diligence that Martin Falls did. I mean, they talked to our communities. And obviously, they must have been saying some good things. So it's a must to have those communities on our side. It shows that they're impressed with what they've seen over the years.
North Star Air was founded in 1997 and has been on a sharp incline in the past 3 years. They now have a fleet of 15 aircraft which provide passenger, charter, and cargo services. Achinipanescum says they look forward to working with North Star and hopes they can improve services across the board.
And addressing the long-standing issues we have with flight services into the community. So we look at things like safety at the airports, better services, better baggage handling, better passenger services all around.
In roughly 2 to 4 weeks, a plane similar to the one behind me will be making the first trip from Thunder Bay to Martin Falls under the new agreement with North Star Air. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
It's been almost 10 years since the province of Ontario introduced stunt driving laws. Stunt driving is considered driving 50 kilometers an hour or more over the posted speed limit. But it appears some drivers still haven't gotten the message. In a 4-month time frame, OPP and Marathon have charged 10 people with stunt driving. Of those 10, 6 are Ontario residents. Police want to remind people the penalties for stunt driving include a 7-day driver's license suspension, impoundment of a vehicle, a minimum $2,000 fine up to a maximum of $10,000, and 6 demerit points. A medical marijuana clinic in Fort Frances has some people concerned over the direction the province is moving in. The owner of the Rainy River Cannabis Collective says provincial legislation is geared more towards recreational users and not towards those who use marijuana for medicinal purposes. Adam Riley has the details.
10 months ago, the Rainy River Cannabis Collective opened its doors to the public. Located on Scott Street in Fort Frances, to some it looks like your average head shop with shirts, pipes, and other paraphernalia. But in reality, it is actually a clinic with medical professionals on staff who are able to guide patients looking to use medical marijuana. In recent weeks, Ottawa and the province have been releasing their plans for the legalization of marijuana. However, owner Angela Olson has her concerns with the plan to have the LCBO selling pot.
The marketplace that the province is envisioning, it may work for the recreational user. I mean, you just basically need to stock your shelf with good product and they'll buy it and leave. So it's not really a stretch that that's going to work. But for the medicinal patient, you know, there's a little bit more to it that you need to fulfill in order to meet the obligation that the Supreme Court of Canada has put in place, which is that every Canadian patient has the right to reasonable access.
Olson says she, along with many of the other members at the collective, are preparing a letter for Premier Kathleen Wynne, voicing their concerns over the province's plan. She says medicinal users have certain needs and questions and feels a government-run storefront will not be able to provide the answers to clients.
Things like ongoing care, access to a physician who has expertise in medical cannabis. We teach them how to grow their own medicine and do it safely. If they ever want recipes for making concentrates or edibles, we really look at it as there's a whole circle of services that needs to come together for patients to be successful.
Olson says her shop will only focus on the needs of medicinal users. However, she is looking forward to expanding into the region to assist those looking to use marijuana for medicinal purposes. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Well, coming up next, he's the fastest gun in the Northwest, and he has the accolades to prove it. When we think of sports, we naturally think of hockey, baseball, even football, but recreational shooting has become very popular in recent years. And one man from Dryden has earned the title of world champion in police pistol combat shooting. Adam Riley has more.
Rolly Miles is not a member of the Canadian Armed Forces, nor is he a police officer, but his accuracy in police pistol combat has made him one of the top shots in the world. Miles recently returned from competing on the world stage in Germany, where he earned top prize in the pistol category.
We're pretty active here at this club. We have a monthly shoot, we have annual matches, we have the Ontario Provincial Championships, we've hosted national championships here, so shooting isn't really new to us here, and we thought, why not go to the world stage and, you know, put your hat in the ring against the best in the world, and it was pretty fruitful this time.
For Miles, who unlike many of the other competitors works a full-time job and shoots as a hobby, being named #1 in the world is pretty surreal.
You know what? It says world champion on the trophies there, but I don't feel any different. You know, I went and had a good time, and things went right for me, and you know, we're just going to keep playing the game as long as we can.
Police pistol combat shooting initially started as a training program for police officers during the 50s and 60s that tested them under the conditions similar to the real-world situations they would face. However, it inadvertently became enjoyable, not only for the officers themselves, but for the general public too, as a recreational sport. Miles started shooting as he grew up on a farm near Dryden, but only within the last decade did he begin competing, and he has steadily climbed up the ladder of success. Aside from the accolades earned through the sport, Miles says one of the best things gained through competing is the friendships.
It's fantastic going to Europe and going to the U.S. and going to these tournaments, because it's like a family reunion every time we go there. You know, you got friends in pretty much every country now because of this sport, and it's always such a great pleasure to go and see them once, maybe twice a year if you're really lucky.
Miles says the local shooting clubs are always looking for new shooters to come out and give it a shot, adding it's so easy anyone can do it, even a TBT News reporter. Adam Riley, TBT News.
While economy and infrastructure play a big role in community development, there's one element that is key towards community success: volunteerism. On Monday, Fort Frances Council honored many of those volunteers for their years of service and dedication. In total, 500 Canada 150 pins and certificates will be awarded to residents who have gone above and beyond for their community. Mayor Roy Avis says there aren't enough people on council or working for the city to do all that's needed to make the community a success. He says it's volunteers who make that possible.
We have a tremendous number of volunteers. Actually, it's phenomenal, the number of volunteers that we have that come forward, no matter if it's for the museum board, the library board, or the Fun on the Sundays in the summer. These citizens come forward, they put in their time. It's fantastic. I think that, like I say, the community is only as strong as the people that live there.
Avis says Fort Frances will be giving out the awards in small groups at every council meeting for the foreseeable future. The owner of a landmark building in Kenora is looking at options to make repairs to the structure after being turned down by council to remove its heritage designation. It stands out against the Kenora downtown skyline, but the aging Kenrecia Hotel is in need of some repairs. However, for some of those repairs to take place, the building's heritage designation, marking the site as one of historical significance, would need to be removed. Earlier this summer, Kenora City Council turned down a motion to have that designation removed. Mayor Dave Canfield says he feels for the hotel owner who wants to make repairs and upgrades, but adds that the owner did nothing to sway council's decision.
It's private property. The person has his own money invested in it. You know, a lot of people that had input into the fact that no, don't take it off. Well, they don't have any skin in the game, and really, I feel more for the person that that has the skin in the game. What they really failed to do was to come and make a presentation to council and say, well, this is why we want the designation taken off. That didn't happen, and so the things that have to be repaired on there really didn't have a whole lot to do with the heritage designations.
Canfield says council has made exceptions for additions and repairs to other heritage buildings in the past. He adds they may reopen the debate if the owner comes to council, and says the cost to fix the building with the heritage designation is too high. The longest-serving MP in the history of the Lakehead has received a new honor. Joe Camuzzi, along with 6 other community members, were presented with Paul Harris Fellowship Awards by the Port Arthur Rotary Club. Camuzzi spent 20 years in Parliament between 1988 and 2008. He was honored by the Rotarians for his ongoing commitment and efforts to improve our community. Fellowships were also presented to 5 longtime Rotary Club members for their work building goodwill, world understanding, and peace, and the executive director of Roots to Harvest was also honored. Aaron Beagle received a Paul Harris Fellowship for being a creative, unifying force for youth and sustainable development.
Being recognized with this fellow is a surprise, first of all. They didn't tell me why I was coming, and it feels incredibly validating for the work that Roots to Harvest does, especially by a group like Rotarians who are all doing so much good in the community too.
Well, it's nice, and this is one of the few that I'll put on my wall. I'm building myself a new office. my son and daughter don't think I should be doing this, but I'm building an office and going to start to get active again.
Camuzzi adds the Rotary Club is the longest-serving charitable organization in Thunder Bay, and he's honored to be recognized alongside the 5 Rotarians. Well, that'll do it for this week's edition of Northwest Newsweek. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to tune in next time.